episode of A Fresh Perspective with Jeff Charles. Boy, you know who I am, your favorite conservatarian, Jeff Charles, where we prefer truth over narrative and principles over politics. And I'm coming at you solo again today, like I said, and I just got something on my mind, just want to talk about it. And it'll be concerning this whole January 6th committee and the hearings that are going on right now, and a recent poll that just came out that had some very interesting results, only some of which are surprising. But before I get into that, just want to remind you to like this video, share this video. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell also, because that will let you know whenever I upload a new video or when I upload a new interview, which I upload every Wednesday and Friday evening at 7 o'clock Eastern. I've had a ton of awesome guests talking about the issues of the day, and very educational for me. See, the thing I like about the interviews is that I don't do a whole lot of talking. I let my guests do the talking because they are the subject matter experts. So definitely check those out. Also, if you want to support my work monetarily, you know what to do. It's in the show notes. I've got the CashApp, PayPal app, Venmo app, and all the other apps. Every little bit counts. I appreciate it all. Helps me to bring you this marvelous content. So, what's on everybody's minds? Well, that's actually hard to say because there's a lot of different issues going on. But I want to talk about the January 6th committee and the hearings that are going on right now. And you've probably seen me comment on this on Twitter and in some of the articles that I've written, and I've done some other video content on it. And you guys already know where I stand on this whole thing. It's very much obvious that it's politically motivated. And you could see that from the very beginning of this whole process. But what's interesting about this is that there was a poll that just came out, I believe it was just a few days ago. I wrote an article on it on Red State, and it was an INI TIPP survey, TIPP Insights poll that showed that most Americans view these hearings the way I do, and probably the way you do if you're listening to this. So before I even get into all of that, I wanted to play a little clip about, basically about today's hearings. I mean, they've had, I think, 7 or 8 or so. I don't know. They've had a bunch. I've lost count. But it's interesting how the Democrats and their comrades in the activist media are hyping up this whole thing. They've been hyping it up ever since 5 minutes after the riot at the U.S. Capitol last year. They've been trying to leverage it in a way that allows Democrats to score some political points and do enough damage to former President Donald Trump and other Republicans. I'll get to that in a second. First, I just want to play this clip. So let me set that up right quick. All right.
The hearing today will focus on Donald Trump and his ties to supporters, including extremist groups who stormed the Capitol. Congressional correspondent Rachel Scott is on Capitol Hill. Good morning, Rachel.
George, good morning. And that has been a big question hanging over these hearings. What connection, if any, did the violent extremists that stormed the Capitol on January 6th have to the former president and his close allies? Well, today the committee will try to draw that link. They'll be zeroing in on a tweet from former President Donald Trump urging his supporters to be there on January 6th, saying that it would be wild. They will say that those words served as a signal to extremist groups like the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys, and they will hear from the former spokesperson for the Oath Keepers, Jason Van Tatenhove, as well as Stephen Ayers, one of the rioters who traveled to Washington, D.C. from Ohio, warning of a possible civil war, and who highlighted that tweet from Trump on his social media before he stormed the Capitol. We are told that a big focus of today's hearing will actually be on the weeks and the days leading up to the insurrection, including a meeting at the White House where outside advisors floated brazen ideas like seizing voting machines from around the country. And in a striking development, it will likely also be the first time we hear any of that taped testimony from former White House counsel Pat Cipollone. He was the top Trump White House lawyer at the time. He sat with the committee for several hours last week, and we are told that he did confirm parts of that testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson, George.
And Rachel, Steve Bannon, of course, President Trump's former advisor, said over the weekend that he's now willing to testify before the committee, but it's now clear that's not going to delay his trial.
Not going to delay his trial at all. In fact, this was a federal judge appointed by former President Donald Trump who said the trial.
All right, I think that's enough there. We don't really need to get into Steve Bannon. I guess until they have him testify, they try to make a big deal out of it. But you can see what they're trying to do here, right? They're trying their best to make it sound that there was a link between former President Donald Trump and some of the people that came to riot at the U.S. Capitol. You saw that, or you heard the tweet that they tried to use to prove that Trump incited this riot because he used the word wild. He said, "Oh, come up to the Capitol. It's going to be wild." Now, no sane person thinks that these people saw that tweet and said, "You know what? Trump said it's going to be wild, so I better go there and riot at the Capitol." No, that didn't happen. No, nobody actually believes that. Obviously, you know what Trump meant. He's trying to get people hyped up about him speaking at the Capitol and talking about the election and all of that stuff. So really, this whole thing is designed to find information that they can use against the former presidents. Now, my theory has always been that, well, there's a few reasons why they're doing this. One is they're hoping to collect enough evidence that would prompt the Department of Justice to indict Trump and maybe some of his allies. That's really the main thing that they want to focus on. Not necessarily because they think that if they indict him, they'll actually convict him of something and put him in jail. Everybody knows that's not going to happen. But if he is indicted, guess what he doesn't do in 2024? He's probably not going to run again. If they don't get an indictment, hopefully, so they're hoping to get enough information that will damage his brand enough, so much so that guess what? He doesn't run in 2024. The whole reason for this is to make sure that President Trump is out of the running for the White House in 2024. Now, that's not the only reason they're doing this. They're also doing this to damage the conservative and Republican brand in general. Because you see how they try to weave in different Republicans, making it sound like they were a part of this. I mean, they were trying to use it against Fox News hosts and different Republican politicians. They accused multiple members of Congress of leading reconnaissance tours to some of the rioters so that they would know where to go when they stormed the Capitol building. There's no evidence for any of that. It's all, and a lot of it has been debunked even in these hearings, but they're still trying. So this whole thing is politically motivated. This isn't about getting to the bottom of anything like they claim. And as I'll explain later, you could see that from the very beginning, from when they even formed the committee itself. But let's get into this poll. So the survey revealed that most Americans, most respondents, realized that these hearings are more about attacking Trump and his supporters than getting to the bottom of what happened on January 6, 2021 at the U.S. Capitol building. And to make it even worse, for the Democrats at least, it's not the only study showing this. I mean, there are other surveys showing that Americans believe that this whole thing is politically motivated. That's not a surprise, but I'm going to get to the surprising part in a second. So in this survey that was conducted in July, this month, the researchers asked whether participants agreed with these two statements. The first was, quote, "Some say that the January 6th committee was handpicked and represents only Democrats' point of view." That's the first statement. The second statement is, quote, "Some say that the January 6th committee's main aim is to ensure President Trump can't run in 2024. So it's asking the respondents if they agree with either of those two statements, or both, or neither. 46% agreed with the first statement, that the members of the panel were handpicked to represent Democrats. About 35% disagreed. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. When you break it down by party, 64% of Republicans agreed that this whole thing was set up to favor Democrats. Here's the interesting thing, because that's not surprising. 43% of Democrats also agreed that this whole committee was set up to favor Democrats. Now, to give you an idea, on the opposite end of those Democrats who disagreed, that was 44%. So only 1% higher than those who agreed with the statement. So you had half of the Democratic respondents acknowledging that this whole thing was set up to represent the Democratic point of view, which should be shocking, because I would expect that number to be a lot lower. You had a lot of honest Democrats taking this survey. Now, with the second statement, and the second statement was, some say, some say that the January 6th committee's main aim is to ensure that President Trump can't run in 2024. 60% of respondents agreed with that statement. Only 27% disagreed. So a little over a quarter of respondents don't think that this was designed to make sure Trump doesn't run again. But again, here's where it gets surprising. 62% of Democrats agreed with the statement. This is only a little bit less than Republicans. 70% of Republicans agreed with the statement. And if you look at independents, 48% agreed with that statement, while only 34% did not. So Democrats are even acknowledging that this whole thing is designed to make sure Trump doesn't run again. And I'm sure a lot of those Democrats are okay with that. They don't want Trump to run again. They don't like Trump. Obviously, they don't. So, but it's interesting that they'll acknowledge that that's the whole reason for this whole farce, but they're probably okay with it. I mean, that's just, we're partisan nowadays, right? I mean, we've always been partisan, but we're hyper partisan in 2022, especially. But it shouldn't be. The only surprising part of the survey was that Democrats were willing to admit this. Because even if the numbers came out lower, I still know that most Democrats can see that this whole thing is biased and that it's designed to attack Trump. It's so obvious that you would have to have your head in the sand to not know this. I mean, you saw this when they first put the thing together, when House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her folks assembled the group. Which Republicans did they allow on there? Because remember, McCarthy suggested Jim Jordan, I think Paul Gosar, and maybe a couple others who were more pro-Trump. They rejected them, right? They didn't let them serve on the panel. Who do they allow? Representative Liz Cheney and Representative Adam Kinzinger, who are Republicans, but these are Republicans who have based their entire platform on launching a crusade and attacking Trump. Their whole thing nowadays is to go against the orange man, what is bad. That's their whole thing. Liz Cheney can't talk about anything else. You ask Liz Cheney what the weather is like in Wyoming, she'll be like, what Trump did was horrible. I know, I mean, it probably affected the weather. It's raining right now because of what Trump did. She can't shut up about Trump. That's why she got stripped of her leadership position and why we have Elise Stefanik in that position now. She's obsessed, and so is Kinzinger. So, of course, Pelosi wanted those two Republicans on there to at least give an air of bipartisanship. But again, it's easy to see through that because you only want the Republicans on the panel who hate Trump. Now, what the study also shows is that people are skeptical about this committee. Even those who may be in favor of it, they know what time it is. They see what's going on. The Democrats are not fooling anybody. And it's like they didn't really even try all that hard to hide their true intentions. Maybe they thought that people would hate Trump so much that they wouldn't care that this whole thing is designed to also distract from their long list of failures while attacking Trump. Because again, there's multiple reasons why they're doing this. This is designed to also distract from the fact that they suck. They're trying to distract from the fact that they have messed things up so thoroughly over the year and a half that they've been in power that they know they're not going to win in the midterms. But this is like a last-ditch effort to try to milk it for whatever they can. Now, what they don't realize, and maybe they do and maybe they just don't care, but the fact that people know that this is politically motivated, this does call their credibility into question, right? I mean, this is a show trial. These proceedings, they're not having anybody up there who's going to contradict their narrative. They're not going to have anybody who disagrees. They're not going to be. That's why they didn't want Jim Jordan and others on there, because they would have gotten some witnesses up there that might have contradicted the narrative that they wanted to weave. And you remember, I'm all about truth, not narrative. But this is a narrative that they're promoting. And even if they are able to find something that is major enough, it's probably not going to do enough damage to help them. Again, this is a desperate measure, and they know this. The Democrats are desperate. They're in a horrible position, and they know it. I mean, they even resort to using this Cassidy Hutchinson chick. And the funny thing about her testimony is that she might have been believable if she hadn't claimed that Trump was trying to go all Chuck Norris on these Secret Service agents. I think when she went there, that kind of just blew everything out of the water. Some of the other stuff that she said, I might actually believe. But when you got the president trying to go MMA and trying to choke out a Secret Service agent. Come on. Everybody knows he didn't do that. Come on. Nobody actually believes that except for the people who want to believe it. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this. I mean, it's not just me saying this. It's not just conservatives acknowledging that this whole circus is politically motivated. It's not about finding the truth. It's not about trying to figure out how to prevent a riot from happening again. Really, we already basically know what happened because the news was reporting on it even before this whole show trial. The FBI was already investigating. The information that they're gathering is specifically designed for a political purpose, which is why it's not going to work. It may be causing a little bit of damage. I'll concede that. I mean, it's not completely ineffectual, but it's not enough, Democrats. I'm sorry to have to tell you that. It's not going to be enough. The Democrats are still going to lose. When people go to the gas pump, paying double to fill up their tank, they're not thinking, man, that riot was so horrible. When they're going to the grocery store and spending way more to get food for their families, the U.S. Capitol is the last thing that's on their minds. They're not waking up in the morning at the breakfast table talking about this stuff. And the fact that the left is trying so badly to distract the public from it, again, just shows a desperation and also a lack of consideration for what their viewers really want to find out about. They want to know when gas prices are going to start going down. They want to know what this administration is going to do about the migrant crisis. They want to know what's happening with their children's education. These are the issues people care about. I mean, hell, even abortion would make a better linchpin than this stupid show trial. Abortion, I mean, people don't consider it to be as important as the issues that I just named, but we just had a major landmark decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. And they are, to be fair, they are trying to use that to their advantage. But that's not going to work either. The bottom line is that the Democrats are in for a very hard, half decade. I mean, over the next 4, 5, 6, maybe even beyond that years, they're in trouble unless something crazy happens. The question, though, is, are Republicans going to take advantage of this now? Because now they have an opportunity. Things are swinging in favor of the Republicans, and they better not blow it like they have in the past. So I will say that, and now, you know me, I will be on them just like I'm on the Democrats when they take power back. But for now, Democrats are pretty much doomed, and there's nothing that this January 6th committee can do about that. So that's all I have to say about that. I'll see you guys on the flip side.